Hello and welcome to the Tough Cover Podcast, right here live at 5 on the Painted Lines today on Monday, June 14th, for the first episode since last Monday on June 7th, and it's been a hell of a week since then. I am your host, Mark Henry Jr., and you can follow me on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. _, and you can follow the podcast at Tough Cover Pod, and you can follow the Painted Lines at the Painted Lines. And please subscribe wherever you're watching this on YouTube or Twitch, and it'll let us know that you guys are keeping in touch with the Painted Lines and are part of the Tough Cover Clique, as I always say. So on today's show, we are going through a loaded night in all three sports, in the NHL, the NBA, the MLB. And if you guys have any picks for me, leave them in the comments. If you have any thoughts on my picks, leave them in the comments. I have some picks for tonight, a couple futures about some playoff series and playoffs in general that are going on right now. So it is a loaded card. I'm going to try to get it to you as fast as possible. We are 34-30 in the month of June, but because we are 10-4 on best bets, and we have hit some big plus money props on certain sports books that have some odds boosts, and we've really taken advantage of that. And we are up 37.5 units in June, which is our best month so far on the Tough Cover Podcast, and puts us way positive, which we already were. So it's good to be making you guys money. Someone says here, do you put any significance in series prices versus game spreads? It's funny you say that, Mantis. I have something very, very interesting about the Clippers-Jazz games against the series tonight. It kind of ties in with the Bucks and Nets and the Sixers and the Hawks. So stay around, and I'll get to that at the end of the pod when I talk about Clippers-Jazz and if I'm betting the game or the series. So I like that question a lot. That's a great question. Saw someone saying that Philly is minus 580 and they should be more than minus 3. Yeah, I get what you're saying there, but they still do have 2 games at home after that. But speaking of that game, speaking of the Philadelphia 76ers and the Atlanta Hawks, at 7:30, I have my best bet, which is the Philadelphia 76ers team total over 114 points for 5 units. Sixers have scored 114 plus points in their last 8 playoff games. The Sixers have scored 124, 118, and 127 in their first 3 playoff games with the Hawks. Last game was an easy cash as well as the game before, and those were in blowouts. And like I always say, close games breed overs. I could see Atlanta having a better night offensively, and I'm not even 100% convinced that the Sixers win as much as I was with Game 1 and Game 2. But I actually think that might help the bet here. I don't see what Atlanta's adjustment is offensively against the Sixers. They could make more shots. They could win the game, but I still don't see them keeping the Sixers under 114 points. And I don't really see them keeping them under 120 points. They did a good job on Embiid last game. It still didn't matter. Sixers, team total, over 114. My best bet, my lock of the night, my play of the day. It's actually funny. The way that my picks go, I'm giving you them in descending order of confidence. My first place, 5 units. Second, 4 unit. 3 unit is third. Fourth is a 2-unit play, and fifth is a 1-unit play. It's just how it played out chronologically in terms of the games and what time they're on tonight. But my best bet, like I said, is the Philadelphia 76ers at 7:30, team total over 114 points against the Atlanta Hawks for 5 units. Moving on to the MLB, at 8:10, I have the Tampa Bay Rays plus 100 on the money line at the Chicago White Sox for 4 units. The White Sox roster bets 192 with a 491 OPS against stud Tyler Glasnow, while the Rays bet 306 with an 807 OPS against stud Lance Lynn. We all know that the White Sox smash lefties, but they're only average against righties, while the Rays absolutely rake righties, and they're in the top 10 of every category against right-handed pitching. The Rays have also been elite on the road, way better than at home, 23-10 on the road, batting .238 and averaging 6 runs on the road, as opposed to .223, averaging 3.88 runs, which is a wild home road split. I haven't looked at the rest of the league, but I imagine that is one of the largest gaps in the league in terms of a home road split outside of like Colorado. These are the 2 best teams in the league record-wise, and they're facing off. They're 2 of the hottest teams in the league, both 7-3 in their last 10. The Rays have been the most profitable team in the AL, and 14-6 is a road dog. I see a lot of people on the White Sox today, but I do not agree. I like the Rays a lot. Mantis said, I'm back with connection. Do you mind repeating your answer? I'll get to it when I get to the Clippers-Jazz matchup tonight, Mantis. So stick around, and I'll kind of talk about series price versus game price, especially about the Clippers-Jazz game tonight and the series in general. But we're switching it up. First pick NBA, second pick MLB. But to show the duality of the Tough Cover podcast and the diversity of sport watching that I have that I have become with being a hockey fan all of a sudden. But at 9 o'clock, I have the Montreal Canadiens plus 230 at the Las Vegas Golden Knights for 3 units. I've been riding with the New York Islanders and the Montreal Canadiens as massive underdogs. I'm going to continue riding with them as massive underdogs here tonight, like I did with the Islanders last night. I am 15-6 plus 22 units this year in the NHL playoffs, and 52-33 at plus 38.5 units in the NHL lifetime, while not at all being a hockey fan. I think there's massive value in the NHL, and there's massive values on underdogs, especially in the playoffs, because I think Vegas is overrating regular season success, and every game is more of a toss-up than they make it out to be on the line making. So, and also I'm sticking in this game, Canadians plus 1.5 at Vegas for 2 units. Anytime I see a team at plus 1.5 in the playoffs around minus 120, I'm in. The reason I'm so confident in money line and plus 1.5 is having Carey Price in net. It seems like all that matters in hockey, and especially the playoffs, is goalkeeping. So Carey Price goes into the semifinals, leading all playoff goalies with a .935 save percentage, considering he was at .936 last year against Pittsburgh and Philadelphia in the playoffs. It's right along his usual playoff production, so I don't see why this isn't repeatable and why this is going to stop against Vegas. Also, I am putting a unit on the Canadiens at plus 390 to win the series, and 1 unit on the Canadiens to win the Cup at plus 1100. I'm also putting 2 units on the Islanders to win the series at plus 100, and 1 unit on the Islanders to win the Cup at plus 360. So I'm really riding with the New York Islanders and the Montreal Canadiens. Go Isles and go Habs. And at 9:40, switching back over to baseball, I've got the Los Angeles Angels plus 140 on the money line at the Oakland A's. Both of these teams come in red hot. I don't bet on the Angels often, and I don't bet against the A's often, but the A's roster struggles mightily against Dylan Bundy, batting .205 with a .621 OPS, while the Angels roster absolutely mashes left-handed pitching and lefty Sean Manaea specifically with a very righty-heavy lineup. The Angels bat .273 with a .770 OPS against Sean Manaea. This is, again, just a small play based on trends. I'm going Angels plus 140 on the money line at the Oakland A's for 1 unit. And then at 10 o'clock, getting to kind of what Mantis is talking about above here, instead of taking the Clippers-Jazz game tonight, I'm going to go in a little bit different of a direction. I am taking the Clippers at plus 160 to win the series. Instead of taking their game tonight at minus 5, I'd rather take plus 160 to win the series, because if Vegas is right and the Clippers win, that price will jump just like the Bucks Nets jumped and just like the Sixers Hawks prices jumped. So that is kind of my answer to your question in the comments, Mantis. I think in what you're saying is if Vegas is so confident the Philly's going to win the series, why are they only -3 tonight? There could be value on that for sure, but this could be a throw the kitchen sink out game for the Atlanta Hawks. And the reason Vegas is so confident in that specific situation is because the Sixers are so good at home, and Game 5 and Game 7 are guaranteed to be at the Wells Fargo Center. So that is why I think that they're so heavily favored about not being so favored tonight. But this Clippers thing doesn't make much sense to me if they're going to be -5. And Vegas is assuming that they're going to win the game probably if you're at a -5, taking it out of the kind of close money line range. That's surprising to me that they would leave this series price at around plus 160. To me, this is a complete toss-up on who's going to win the series and who's going to win this game tonight. I think both should be minus 110, pretty much options both ways, but I think we're getting a hell of a value at plus 160 with the Clippers to win the series versus the Jazz. And just a quick little future checkup, I still do have my 3 units riding on the Milwaukee Bucks plus 170 against the Brooklyn Nets to win this series. That would be a huge cash, and it's something about a week ago or 4 or 5 days ago that I thought was deader than disco. So it's good to see that that is still in play. So let's read off my picks of the night. I've got the Sixers team total over 114 for 5 units at 730. At 810, I've got the Tampa Bay Rays plus 100 on the money line at the Chicago White Sox for 4 units. At 9 o'clock, I have the Montreal Canadiens money line for 3 units at plus 230, and I have them plus 1.5 at minus 120 for 2 units. And then with the last play of the night, I have the Los Angeles Angels in a small play at plus 140 against the Oakland A's for 1 unit at 940. And then the futures that I gave out there were the Islanders to win the series at plus 100, the Islanders to win the Cup at plus 360, the Canadiens to win the Cup at plus 1100, and the Canadiens to win this series at plus 390, as well as the Clippers to win this series at plus 160. We are also looking at the Bucks plus 175 to win this series, and we still have our Sixers plus 400 and Sixers plus 700 to win the Eastern Conference tickets. So just threw some futures at you, just threw some picks at you. We are red hot here in the Tough Cover podcast, 34-30, up 37.5 units. We're going to keep hitting our best bets, and we're going to keep it moving on to tomorrow. So thank you for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Thank you for joining us. Follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _ on Twitter. Follow the podcast at Tough Cover Pod, and follow the Painted Lines at the Painted Lines. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of the Tough Cover Click, and enjoy the winners.